Today I'm answering questions about cameras and a lot of questions about lenses. My first question today is from Andy. He says, best all-round lens to cover all shooting styles without taking 3 or 4 lenses. Well, Andy, this is an impossible question, just based on the all shooting styles aspect. Now, common shooting styles might be sports, portraits, wildlife, and landscape. Depending upon the brand, you can find do-it-all zooms for cropped sensor cameras, like Nikon's 18 to 200 millimeter lens, or for full frame, like the 28 to 300. Now, as you zoom in on these lenses, you lose light, so they're not great low light lenses, which eliminates some styles of photography. If you need low light for telephoto, then you need a different lens, one that's not going to go to wider angles. If you do get a do-it-all lens, know what you're getting. A lot of the questions that I receive are about blurry images from zoom lenses, and often this is because the widest aperture at the long end of the do-it-all lenses is either f5.6 or f6.3, and that makes it difficult to get acceptable shutter speeds in anything but bright conditions, hence ending up with blurry photos. Now for a question from Robert. 50mm f1.8 or 35mm f1.8? Both? It depends on what you want to do with it. I do have a video where I compared the 50mm f1.8D lens, the 50mm f1.8G lens, and the 35mm f1.8G DX lens. Incidentally, since I made that video, I acquired the 35mm D lens, which gives me the 35mm field of view on my full-frame Nikon body. I like this lens too. If you have a zoom lens which covers both focal lengths, like maybe the 18 to 55 kit lens, try setting it to 35mm or to 50mm and then force yourself to stay there for a while taking photos. Then do the same with the other focal length, and that should help you decide which you'd enjoy more. Obviously, for me, the answer was both. On to another lens question, this time from Eric. For a semi-pro photographer, the Nikkor 14 to 24 or the 16 to 35, I need a lens wider than my 28. I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's all up to you. There's really no one best answer for this. Here, though, are some things to think about. 14mm is wide, really super ultra wide. For me, it's not an all-day thing, maybe once a week. The 16 to 35, of course, doesn't go quite as wide, but it does give you more range to work with, which could be more flexible for you overall. You can use the field of view simulator on Nikon's site to help you out with this. I have a video on how to use it, and that video includes a link to the simulator too. Then you'll need to consider the aperture. Do you really need f2.8, or will f4 suffice? Do you plan to shoot in really low light? And then last, price. You'll save a little money with the 16 to 35, so how wide is wide enough? How wide an aperture do you really need? And what do you need to spend? Dewan says, when shooting portraits, I have the Nikon 85 f1.8 lens, great lens I might add, but with me being pretty new to photography, almost a year now, I see a lot of photographers shooting with the 70 to 200 f2.8 or longer telephoto lenses like the 105mm, 135mm, and even 200mm. What's the pros and cons of shooting portraits with the longer end of the telephoto spectrum? Because I love using my 85mm and 50mm and even the 35mm lenses, but if I can get better results going long, I might make the investment with a longer glass. Thanks, I know you'll give me your honest opinion. Shoot the 85mm or your other lenses for portraits, and just don't worry about those other folks. What you're doing is fine. People, they like to shoot portraits from further back because you don't run into perspective issues from shooting too close. Some people like to shoot with what they have, which might be a 70 to 200, and some think that going further and further back is always better. But the way perspective works is once you're at a certain distance back, you get diminishing returns. There's a huge difference between shooting at 15 feet instead of 5 feet, but not much gained by going back to 25 feet and zooming in more. Now, I've been known to shoot portraits with everything from ultra wide to dragging out my 70 to 200 or 24 to 70, but most often it's with my 85mm prime. On to a couple of camera questions from Ivan. 1. Our family is about to invest in the Nikon 1 AW1 camera. We want as a water park / summer. We also want it to be a startup camera before moving up to higher end ones. Do you think this camera delivers good pictures? Have you T&E this item and what do you think? 2, I want to get my 9-year-old son a Samsung WB350F as his camera. I figure it is inexpensive and offers cool features. I may use it from time to time for YouTube videos. Your thoughts? Thanks for this Q&A. I've answered that first question for you already, Ivan, so check out this Q&A video from last month for an answer about the AW1. As for the Samsung, putting any camera in a child's hands is great. Many of them, like this one, allow you to put it in auto mode or even switch over to scene modes or even to all the way, to manual. It's something that your son will be able to grow and learn with. Kosiuk asks another rather difficult lens question. What is your favorite lens and why? Every single one of them. Because each of you is special in your own way. If you bumped into me on the street or trails though, you'd probably see me with my 50mm or my 24mm prime lens on my camera. Guomundur says, if I'm going for image quality and shallow depth of field, will I get better result with full frame Canon 6D and f4 lenses than crop Canon 70D and f2.8 lenses? Depth of field will be similar between the combinations that you mentioned, and image quality on current generation DSLRs is better than ever. And that goes for full frame and cropped sensor bodies. So whatever you shoot, focus on the creative aspects of controlling your subject and its environment. There will be much greater difference in your images from varying composition and creative techniques versus which camera and lens that you buy. Rick has an interesting question. I just bought a bellows for my Nikons. Will I be able to trust the camera meter, and will I have to use any bellows extension factor when I calculate exposure? I have a couple film cameras and one DSLR. Well, Rick, I don't know specifically which product that you've purchased, but if the lens connects to the bellows and the bellows connects to the camera, you will probably not get any exposure information in the camera at all. If it couples the lens information with the camera, though, it may all work out. But I've not used what you describe to be able to actually tell you for sure. And my last question is from Jim. Have you had any problems with purple spots with a 50mm f1.8D with your digital cameras at higher f-stops? Well, spots can be for a number of different reasons. If you have some spots that you're not sure about, send me an email with an image or two and I'll take a look at them. You may have noticed that I say it depends on you a lot. That's because it does. There is no one best lens, no one best focal length, and no one best camera or camera brand. We all have different priorities and preferences. So the moral of the story is, do the research to see what's out there, but then shoot how and what you like to shoot. Release the notion that there is a best or right or wrong way of doing things. And with that deep thought, I leave you today. Thanks everyone for your questions. I'll be back next week with another Q&A video where I will answer your questions about computers and editing software, the future of photography, and more. Follow me on Facebook or subscribe to my channel to find out when new videos are available.